Morning world, it's Monday morning. I think it's the 7th of September. It's about 9 a.m. UK time. Few things first of all, to those of you who have clear skies at the moment, we are getting a light show out there. In the evening, to the south after sunset, and then to the west in the late evening, we're seeing both Jupiter really bright, and to the left about a hand's width, Saturn really resplendent. I happened to be up at 5:30 this morning AM UK time. Looking out my back window, I saw Venus absolutely resplendent, high in the sky, really, really glorious. And then I went out the front and I saw the moon, and right next to the moon, to the right, bright red Mars. Brighter than I've seen it possibly ever. Maybe because we've got clear skies at the moment, but just really, really beautiful to see all of those planets in the sky. And it's like when you look at those planets against the backdrop of the constellations in the heavens, which admittedly from London isn't that easy, then you get a little bit of an idea of how the creation myths came about. And sometimes when I'm out in the country and I'm talking to people, I can show them the actual mythology of creation up there in the heavens with the original myths as demonstrated by the constellations. And that's just an amazing thing. Secondly, astrology is not an art and it is not a science. It is a blend of mathematics, geometry, symbology, psychology and intuition. Having said that, prediction is not a sensible tool in astrology. I should never make predictions, although I do. Really, when dealing with clients, you don't make predictions. You don't. You give them timings and areas, and what they do with that is up to you, up to them. Because I'm doing videos, I'm loath to sort of let my mouth run away with me, and I do make predictions, and I don't always get it right. I'm right more than I'm wrong. But when I'm wrong, there's one or two of you out there who absolutely delight in rubbing my nose in it, and you're like a dog with a bone. You simply don't let go. Yes, I predicted Boris Johnson would not be Prime Minister much longer, and I was wrong. Tell you what though, I also predicted Donald Trump would not serve a full term, and I'm still hanging on to that one. We shall see. Meantime, look, if you want to slag me off or criticise me, then I'm going to give you a chance, because immediately after this, I'm going to post another video, one that I recorded at the end of July. It's only about 2 minutes long, and it's a rant, and it's the astrology of mask wearing. Make of it as you will. So if you want to criticise me, do it on that one, not on this one. This one is serious. COVID-19 has now been a recognised force since January. 9 months. 8 months, 9 months. There are a number of different versions of stories that suggest it's been around longer than that. When I see people still to this day and age protesting, getting out there in the world saying it's a fake, it doesn't exist, it's a scam, I feel like strangling them, because, you know, if it was one country, I'd think, yeah, it's a scam. If it was a few group of countries, I'd say, yeah, there's something not right here. There's some type of covert manipulation. But when it's every country in the world, and I know people who work in accident and emergency departments. I've seen the accident and emergency departments. So to say that COVID-19 doesn't exist and it's a scam and it's a plandemic and it's all a plot by Bill Gates, what does that say about your own psychology? It says that you're a paranoid wreck if you believe that, because all you need to do is go down the accident and emergency centres and talk to the professionals. But that doesn't fit into some people's game plans. So still, takes all sorts to make a world. Now, when you look at a virus, astrologically speaking, the most common influence around viruses, toxins and poisons is Neptune. Neptune's in Pisces, its own sign, for the first time since the 1860s, 1870s. And it's about 2/3 of the way through now. It's got about another 4 or 5 years to run before it moves into Aries in 2025. 2026, so about another 5 or 6 years. But Neptune isn't under what I call really difficult aspect. In fact, at this time, Neptune's under quite good aspect from Jupiter, to a lesser extent by Pluto. So I find it difficult to relate to Neptune in terms of understanding the origin of COVID and why it's there and what its purpose is. Instead, I'm thinking, what was going on when COVID really erupted? When COVID started escaping from wherever it came from and came into the population globally, it was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, 3rd week of January, followed by the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, 4th week of January, start of February. Now, Saturn is now retrograde. It's getting ready to stand still, and it will stand still in about 3 weeks' time. Close to, but not exactly conjunct, Pluto. Jupiter is going to stand still and stop going retrograde shortly. And that's going to stand still still a fair few distance away from Pluto. If you look at Jupiter and Saturn in the sky at the moment, in the morning or in the evening, depending on where you are, Pluto is between the two. Different latitude, but longitude is between the two. Jupiter will conjunct Pluto later this year, November time. So with Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto still being the dominant force astrologically over 2020, I have to assume that COVID is making a comeback. The figures all over the world suggest this. I saw an amazing graph yesterday that showed that in Europe over the last 7 to 10 days there's been about 7,000 new cases daily. In America there's 65,000 cases daily. In India it's in a mess. When we see these hundreds of thousands of cases of COVID, yes, fewer people are dying, which is great, but more cases are happening. So it suggests that herd immunity is beginning to happen, or the virus is getting weaker. I'm not buying into the vaccine because I know that we've cured some viruses with vaccine, things like polio, smallpox. They've been eradicated. Well, they're still in laboratories, but they've been eradicated. But they're not coronaviruses. The common cold is a coronavirus, and there's no vaccine for that yet after 100 years of experimentation. So I'm not holding my hope out for any cure to COVID-19 by a vaccine. Astrologically speaking, as Jupiter starts moving forward and moves forward to conjunct with Pluto again, late October through to late November, mid-late November, I expect cases to rise again globally. And then I hope that COVID is going to fade away. Not completely, it's there forever now, it's part of life, and it will become just another virus by the end of this year, start of next year. As Jupiter and Saturn move into Aquarius, we should see a whole new focus away from COVID and not going back to the old politics of partisanship in America, or Brexit in England, or immigration in Australia, or racism in India. It's time to move on from all that. COVID's been a godsend in many ways, apart from the deaths, obviously, because it's taught us to refocus ourselves. It's the end of the hothouse office culture, I'm pleased to say. People have got different priorities now to what they did 9 months ago. So a few days ago, I did a video at the start of September with first signs of hope. I am cautiously hoping, and astrologically I think I'm backed up by this, that the more we get into the end of November and the start of December, we should start seeing COVID beginning to decrease, and I would hope that as we get into January it is becoming much more of a minor thing than it currently is, which would be lovely. Something else will come up in some stage in the future and we will cope with it. This is not the pandemic that's going to destroy the world, obviously. Meantime, the planets are still up there, and they will always be up there, and if humans weren't around, there'd be no one to make stories and myths and allegories. But for the time being, I shall continue wearing my mask when I go out. I shall continue staring at the skies in the evening, looking at the planets and drawing inspiration and hope. And as a species, we will get through this. We will. I still think that eating as much garlic, chili, ginger, turmeric as possible and having a really positive sense of humour is actually probably the single best medicine for most things, let alone any virus. On that note, I'll get this out. Catch you later, world. Bye now.